please welcome the YouTube influencer, BookTok sensation, celebrity librarian, and literary luminary, Mr. Jack Edwards.
Hello, my name is Jack Edwards, and I've become known as the internet's resident librarian due to my concentrated effort to read, review, champion, and promote diverse literature from all around the world. My aim is to connect people with their next favorite book, but also to find mine. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why that is important to me. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. That's how Joan Didion opened her book, The White Album, in 1979. And as always, Joan Didion said it best. It started with the oratory tradition of storytelling, in which our ancestors passed down stories about mythology and religion and folklore. Now we have found new mediums for telling stories, through novels, through poems, through films, through songs, and through folklore, but this time, the album by Taylor Swift. We've always relied on stories to understand this messy, complicated world that we inhabit. Stories help us to make sense of what we see happening around us. And what a privilege it is to exist in a world with so many storytellers. What a luxury it is that so many people have distilled their myriad experiences, entire lifetimes, into something we can hold in our hands, a book. We have libraries full of other people's existences saying, I am here, I have a story to tell. That is why I have dedicated my life to literature and helping other people fall in love with reading. It's also why I don't mind that it's an unachievable goal. The pursuit of knowledge by education is one with ever-expanding goalposts. It just gets bigger and bigger because people just keep writing. People continue to tell stories, and thank God that they do. Dr. Samuel Johnson, who wrote the first English dictionary, said, "To pursue perfection is to chase the sun." Pursuing an impossible target isn't a waste of time. It's not a fruitless or thankless task. If anything, that abundance, I think, should be celebrated. If we chase the sun, our goal is not ever to reach it. We would burn out if we ever got close to it. The point is, the entire time you are chasing the sun, you get to bask in its warmth. You feel its embrace on your skin, and that's what literature is to me, something that I want to bathe in. Reading is an exercise in empathy. It is the way we understand ourselves and the way we understand each other. Walk a chapter in someone else's shoes, and you will understand why they make the decisions that they do. I like flawed characters. I enjoy characters who aren't exceptionally likable. I appreciate characters who are fallible, characters who make mistakes, because people do not need to be exactly like us for us to empathize with them. They do not need to make exactly the same decisions that we do in order to earn our empathy. We all make mistakes. We don't always say the right thing. As a species, we are flawed by nature, and maybe that's what makes us so wonderful. Maybe that's why we keep telling stories, in order to live. I think that's also why we read and why we listen to stories. James Baldwin noted, "You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, and then you read." It's reassuring to remember that we are part of a unit, a collective human race. Storytelling reminds us that if others have persevered in times of suffering, then so can you, and so can I. In the darkest of times, storytelling has prevailed. I think of 1922. In the wake of the catastrophic destruction of the First World War, T.S. Eliot published The Wasteland. He considered the desolation of the world and society around him and chose to make art despite of, if not because of it. James Joyce wrote Ulysses the same year. Virginia Woolf wrote To the Lighthouse in 1927, and in 1928, Ezra Pound said, "Make it new." And storytellers did. Again and again and again, they made it new. And they continue to make it new today. The people in this room make it new. 100 years later, we are emerging from a different global crisis, a pandemic that closed down our offices, our restaurants, and our schools. What never closed down was our ability to make and tell stories. They emerged in new, exciting ways, sometimes on Zoom, sometimes on mute the first time and then audibly the second time. Stories are about the past. They can eulogize or immortalize lessons we have learned, respect we have earned, and systems we have burned. But stories are also about the future. Stories look back at what has happened before and contemplate how we will handle them again if they happen again. Believing you are untethered from the history of the world is like believing you are untethered from gravity. So, we should read stories. We should be curious. We should be in constant pursuit of stories. Why? Because the alternative is dire. The alternative is ignorance, foolishness, indifference. To once again quote the great James Baldwin, because it is the centenary of his birth this year, neither love nor terror makes one blind. Indifference makes one blind. Indifference is lazy. Indifference is a choice. We should be inquisitive. We should be thinking about the stories we are encouraged to read, but also the stories that we are not encouraged to read. I read post-colonial literature because the education system that raised me removed British colonialism from the curriculum. I read African and Asian and South American literature because they weren't stocked in my school library. I read books translated into English from Spanish, from Korean, from Indonesian, from Swedish, represent, because the education system told me that English literature was what was worthy of studying and nothing else. I campaign for translators to be credited on the covers of books because their work is crucial. They are part of the storytelling. There are fixed, predetermined narratives at play here. A specific story is being told, and it's our job to question that story and inform ourselves too. Diversifying and decolonizing your reading should be a priority, categorized under urgent. Ultimately, I think that reading and writing is political because existing is political. It should be your concern because the world should be your concern. And storytelling is also radical. In times of political upheaval and uprising, storytelling has changed lives, immortalized, and eulogized. There are times when the world can feel so dark and so bleak, but storytelling has been a beacon of light. It's the lighthouse guiding our ships past the rocks and safely back to shore. As Bertolt Brecht noted, in the dark times, will there also be singing? Yes, there will be singing about the dark times. So, in these times that feel a little dark, I urge you, keep telling stories, keep reading stories, and keep singing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.